Good day and welcome to the Virgin Islands Small Business Development Center Webinar Tuesday. My name is Mary Jo Williams and I will be your moderator facilitator for today's session. Today's session is called 2021 COVID-19 Economic Aid Overview, and the presenter is Mr. Wayne Huddleston, the SBA Senior Area Manager for the Virgin Islands. Mr. Huddleston has some good information for you guys today, so hold on and sit tight. Now, for those of you that are new, the Virgin Islands Small Business Development Center is a joint venture arrangement between the U.S. Small Business Administration and the University of the Virgin Islands. And as such, what we do is we provide technical assistance for people that are in the conception stage of their business all the way up to people that are in the exit strategy stage of their business. And the best part about this is there's no cost for our counseling services. We have offices on St. Croix, at the Estate Peters Rest, at 6300 Estate Peters Rest, and on St. Thomas, we have offices at number 2 John Brewers Bay in the old Merchants Market / West Bay building, which is now the UVI Center. And although we do have physical offices, we are currently seeing people remotely, via phone, via email, by Zoom meeting. So please contact us with our contact information that will be shown later in this session, and we'll be happy to work with you. And without any further delay, I introduce to you Mr. Wayne Huddleston.
All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you for the introduction, Mary Jo, and thank you to everyone at the SBDC to continue hosting these types of forums as we try to get the word out on SBA programs, and most importantly, information on the Economic Aid Acts, because there are some upcoming deadlines. As Mary Jo mentioned, I will be covering the Economic Aid to Hard-Hit Small Businesses, Nonprofits, and Venues Act, which is its formal name, but most of us are referring to it as the Economic Aid Act, which was passed in December, which has in it some continuation of some programs that had expired with SBA to help small businesses get through the worst effects of the pandemic and the economic hardships as a result, but also some new provisions in that program that can help small businesses. I'm going to focus strictly on the programs that SBA runs, which are really the main economic programs in that act. I'm going to cover all those today and then answer your questions on that. I'm not going to go into other parts of the Economic Aid Act for education and other things that are not of relevance to SBA. Before we go, though, you can see in this title slide here, there is a short disclaimer at the bottom. So as those of you who have been on these SBA forums that SBDC hosts in the past, I provide information which will last probably 30 minutes, maybe a little bit longer, but we try to preserve as much time as possible at the end to answer any questions that you may have regarding the information provided. During that time, oftentimes people ask more specific questions that are not covered in the slide, and I will provide answers to the best I can. Sometimes you'll hear me say, it's my understanding of the act, A, B, and C. However, that act is hundreds of pages long, and I may not get everything exactly right. So in the rare circumstance that what I said does not comport with exactly what it says in the act always takes precedence. I cannot rewrite law for the federal government. So I encourage you that while I am confident all the information you're going to receive today is going to be 100% accurate, always make sure you check the act if it's some sort of detailed curveball question. You want to make sure that you review that, and we'll provide the links to how you can verify all that in the presentation as well. So we're going to go ahead and get started. The first thing we're going to cover is just the agenda here. I'm going to talk about where we are, just give you a brief overview of what those SBA options are under the Economic Aid Act. We're going to go a little bit more detail on the Paycheck Protection Program and the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, because those are the two big ones that most people are taking advantage of in the Act. Then I'm going to go into a little bit of overview of our targeted Economic Injury Disaster Loan Advance and the SVOG program, which is for venue operators. This is a grant program. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about additional resources and then open up the questions from there. So just overall, Congress intended this round of economic aid to assist the hardest hit small businesses and underserved segments, including women, minorities, and veterans. So the program is, of course, open to everyone. But after the first act that was passed in the summer, there was some concern it was not getting as far reach as possible into the underserved segments. So there are some changes in this grant and efforts in its rollout to try to make sure we're reaching everybody. I can tell you that here in the Virgin Islands, we had a very successful reach in the number of people who took advantage of PPP and economic injury disaster loan. So we have not heard any complaints that may have been hearing in other parts of the country that it wasn't reaching communities. However, we are always pushing hard to try to make sure that no one goes unserved by these programs. The one worry I have as we continue forward is I don't want to go into summer and encounter a small business that says, oh, I could have stayed open, or that really would have helped me get through a rough patch if I had just known about it. So trying to spread the word as wide as possible. And if you know of other venues where we could help spread that word, you just let us know and we'll be happy to help get the word or provide a presentation out there. So overview of the big four areas that we're going to cover in this presentation: the PPP program. We're going to talk a little bit about debt relief and microloans. Those are strictly loan programs. Economic injury disaster loan and targeted EIDL advance. Those have some minor grant programs to it in EIDL. And then the shuttered venue operators grant is all a grant program. So you may know that PPP has a forgivable portion for that. It is still technically not a grant, though. It is technically a loan that is forgivable. It is not a grant. So I'm going to talk first about the Paycheck Protection Program and give you the top takeaways from that. First, in the new legislation, it expanded how those funds can be used. And I'll go into a little bit more detail on that later on. The borrower can now select a covered period between 8 and 24 weeks. That covered period is what we define as that period that you would expend those funds that you would receive under the PPP program. That's your covered period. And you must expend them during that time. So it's anytime between 8 and 24 weeks that you would spend those. The new legislation offers a second draw. So those of you who received a PPP loan prior to August 9th now have an opportunity to receive another PPP loan as long as you get your application in and get that approval before the deadline in March. It allows for a deduction of expenses covered within a PPP loan on federal taxes. It updates a simplified forgiveness form to include PPP loans of up to $150,000. In the past, that simplified form was for loans of up to $50,000, and now that's expanded up to $150,000, which makes it a little bit easier to apply for forgiveness for the vast majority of PPP loan recipients. We no longer subtract the EIDL advance from a PPP loan forgiveness amount. So those of you who did receive an economic injury disaster loan in the past and received an advance on that loan may remember that when you applied for forgiveness, the amount of that advance was deducted. That is no longer the case. That is not going to happen going forward. So what is the first draw PPP loan? A first draw PPP loan is for people who did not, or for businesses that did not receive a PPP loan prior to August 9th, 2020. So if you received one in the past, then this is not for you. You're not receiving your first draw, you'll be receiving your second draw. But there are many businesses who did not receive that first draw, so that's what this is for. It now expands to some additional entities and types, which I'll cover a little bit later. It provides for some eligible covered expenses that were not provided in the past. So you may remember that the purpose of the loan proceeds is to spend it on payroll. That's why it's called the payroll or Paycheck Protection Program. You should endeavor to expend all of that on your payroll. However, if you have difficulty spending all of that on payroll during the covered period, and you have additional expenses that you are experiencing that you need the PPP loan to help cover, there does allow for a provision that you can spend as little as 60%, but not less, as little as 60% of that loan on payroll, and then the other 40% on some other specific expenses, and still have the 100% amount forgiven when you go to apply for forgiveness. So originally, those covered eligible expenses outside of payroll were mortgage interest, your rental costs, your utilities. That has since been expanded to also include expenses a business incurred as a result of the pandemic, such as PPP equipment. And I don't want to get the PPPs mixed up, but it's a protective personal protection equipment for employees. So if you had to provide masks, gloves, other things for your business, for your employees, then that would be covered. If you had to modify your business and go to an online setting and that incurred additional expenses such as computers or other equipment to facilitate a virtual business, then those expenses can be covered as well. But that's essentially it. It does not cover a wide amount of businesses. And again, if you can spend all of your PPP loan on the payroll and show that, please do that to save yourself a headache and your business a headache. The easier you can make the forgiveness loan application, the better. Borrowers can set the covered period anywhere between 8 and 24 weeks after disbursement. Some borrowers may request an increase to their original PPP loan amount, but businesses still must have been in business by February 15th. The PPP loan is not intended to help people start or grow a business during a pandemic. It is to help people who have had a significant impact, negative impact because of the pandemic. And again, this deadline is probably the most important thing you want to get out of this, is that you must apply on or before March 31st. And you certainly do not want to be applying on March 31st. You do not want to wait till the end. You want to start applying now if possible, but know that opportunity to apply for this loan does go away by March 31st at the latest. It could go away earlier if all the funds are expended. I do not expect that will happen, but it happened before, so it's always a possibility. So you just want to make sure that you get the information you need and make your application as soon as possible. First draw loan eligibility, as I mentioned, it did expand some entities that are now newly eligible. Those are housing cooperatives, destination marketing organizations, certain 501c6 organizations, such as a Chamber of Commerce, and some eligible news organizations. All other entities that were eligible for a PPP loan originally are still eligible for a PPP loan before. So if you didn't apply before and you were eligible then, but you didn't, you can still apply. There were no changes to that. And again, if you're applying for your second draw, all the businesses that were eligible then are now eligible for a second draw as well. So what is a second draw PPP loan? That is for borrowers who previously received the PPP loan, and there are a couple of different requirements. One is that you must have at least 300 employees or less, and you must have suffered a 25% reduction in gross receipts. So for most borrowers, the maximum loan amount will be the exact same as it was for the original PPP loan amount, which is 2.5 times your average monthly payroll, using either 2019 or 2020 payroll costs up to $2 million. The formula 2.5 times is the same, but depending on which payroll you use, that amount may be a little bit different. And then of course, if you were eligible to receive a loan over $2 million before, you're not eligible to receive a loan now over that amount. It's capped at $2 million. It does raise it for some businesses, and specifically the ones that are under NAICS code, North American Industry Classification System code 72. To put it very simply, if you are a restaurant or you in the food service industry, you're supplying restaurants or somehow impacted there, you most likely fall under NAICS code 72 and be additional for a larger amount. That amount is using a similar formula, but instead of 2.5 times your monthly average, you can use 3.5 times your monthly average and receive a larger amount. The cap of 2 million is still in place, but you get a larger multiple and therefore can be approved for a larger loan under PPP. You must submit a form 2483 SD with your application, and your lender will walk you through that. The eligibility is similar, but there are some additional things, as I mentioned. One other thing you must also have is that you must show that you have used or will use all of your first draw amount under the for the purposes it was intended for. So you may have applied for forgiveness on your first loan amount, and you may not have that response back yet, and that is okay. You can still apply for a second draw loan without having that response back on your forgiveness. However, you must show and attest that you did use all those funds. You've exhausted all those funds in the first round, and you use them for the amount or for the purpose that they were intended. And excuse me, as I mentioned before, no more than 300 employees, and you must demonstrate a 25% reduction in gross receipts in comparable quarters of 2019 and 2020. It must be the same quarters. So if you are using the fourth quarter of 2019 as your example of gross receipts, you must compare that to the fourth quarter of 2020. You cannot use different quarters. So the process is pretty straightforward and similar to how it was before. You must find a PPP lender first. These loans do not, they're guaranteed by SBA, but they are not processed by SBA. They are processed by your local lender. If you don't have a lender, you can go to Lender Match, which is an area on our website, which allows you to link up to SBA lenders. However, I highly encourage you here in the Virgin Islands, if you have a banking relationship with one of the top 5 lenders in the territory, which are Popular, First Bank, Merchants Bank, Bank of St. Croix, and Oriental. If you already have an account with one of those, you should start your application with one of those entities. It just makes it a lot easier typically. And surely if you've already had a loan, a first PPP loan that was done with one of those lenders, it certainly helps to go with the second PPP loan with one of those lenders as well. If you have an existing relationship with a lender back in the United States and you wish to work with them, you can do that as well. You can work with, there are hundreds of lenders in the United States who are processing these loans. You can do them online as well. Highly encourage you to use a local lender, but you do not have to. If you feel they operate too slow or not as responsive, you can go with any SBA lender in this program, and there are many, many out there, and you can find them online. You complete your application with that lender. They will give you all the forms that you need to submit. You will not be submitting anything to us directly. Once they receive all your forms, they will make their decision and they will submit that loan decision to SBA for a guarantee. We respond back to that lender typically within a few days, and they will then just simply deposit that money into your account or your designated account that you have with them. Again, I can't emphasize this enough. Do not wait until the end. March 31st is the deadline. You don't want to wait till that very end and then hit the lenders with a whole bunch of applications to try to process and jeopardize your ability to get that loan application in. You want to do it as early as possible. Again, this is a loan. So if your PPP loan is not 100% forgiven, then it turns into a loan. Ideally, you should have this 100% forgiven. If you're filling the application out and giving all the truthful information on there, and you're able to spend all this on payroll, the forgiveness process is very simple and you should have no worries on that. But if you did not apply for forgiveness for some reason, or you did not expend the funds or cannot show what you did with those funds, then it turns into a loan. It's a fixed rate, only 1%. It's not adjustable. There's no collateral required in it. There are no fees or prepayment penalties. It's a 5-year maturity. There were some loans that were approved before June 5th of 2020, and those had 2-year maturities. However, those can be extended to 5 years if you just ask your borrower and negotiate that with your borrower. Payments start once a borrower knows how much a PPP loan will be forgiven. The lender will notify you. So when you apply for forgiveness, again, you apply through your lender, not SBA. It may take some time to get that approval. But once they get that approval, ideally it's forgiven 100%. You don't even need to deal with it. But if there is either none of it forgiven or only a portion of it forgiven, SBA will notify your lender and your lender will notify you. And then they will notify you when to begin your payments. Those payments start at different times depending on when you received your loan. But they, under SBA rules, they must start 10 months after the last day of the covered period that you designated in your forgiveness application or your loan. Again, apply through your lender. Lender submits through SBA, and then we make the decisions through there. The other provision I want to talk about is idle advances are no longer deducted from PPP loan forgiveness payments. As I mentioned before, if you received an advance, if you received an economic injury disaster loan in addition to your PPP loan, and you received an advance, which could have been anywhere from $1,000 to up to $10,000, those were deducted before. Those are no longer now deducted. You don't have to worry about that. Expenses paid with PPP loan funds are tax deductible. Expanded forgiveness expenses are permissible, as I covered earlier, and new forgiveness application for PPP loans up to $150,000 are allowed under the CARES Act. And forgiven PPP loans are not federally taxable income under the CARES Act. So I'm going to talk now about the economic injury disaster loan. That is the other big program. I'm going to talk about 4 today, but the PPP and EIDL, economic injury disaster loan, are the 2 big ones. That program deadline had originally expired December 31st of 2020, and that has now been extended for a full year to cover the pandemic. The use of the proceeds are restricted on it, not as restricted as PPP, but they are restricted to working capital and normal operating expenses, such as a continuation of healthcare benefits, rent, utilities, fixed debt payments, and so forth. This loan cannot be used in any purpose you want. For instance, if you have other debt out there that you receive an EIDL loan and you want to just pay off that other debt, that is not what it is for. You can make your fixed debt payments on that debt, your regular monthly payments, but it's not intended to finance old debt. It is not intended to purchase new equipment to expand your business or purchase new property. This is not intended for you to grow your business and help it out. It is intended to help it get through a disaster, a declared disaster under COVID-19, and helped you get through that, the negative economic impact because of that, not for growing your business outside of that. The terms are favorable: 3.75% for businesses, 2.75% for nonprofits. There are no prepayment penalty. There's a 30-year term on that. The eligibility is very large: qualified small business, cooperatives, and agricultural enterprises with 500 or fewer employees as defined by our small business standards online, which the link is right there, and private nonprofits. Just to make it simple, you should know that not more than 95% of all businesses in the Virgin Islands will be eligible to apply for an economic injury disaster loan. I've been encouraging people that if you think you might need an economic injury disaster loan, you should go ahead and apply. I understand many people do not wish to carry debt if they don't need to, but we are still dealing with the pandemic. It looks like we're getting near the end of the tunnel here. However, we're not necessarily there yet, and we're not sure how long all these negative effects are going to last. Our tourism is still suffering here because of it. There are not cruise ships coming in. So I encourage people, even if you don't think you need it right now, go ahead and apply, get the approval, take that approval amount and park it in a separate account by itself with nothing else, and just park that money there. If over the next 6 months or 9 months, the pandemic continues and causes a financial hardship and you need to dip into that, then you have it sitting there and you can immediately dip into that. If you do not wish to hang on to it and you realize, I really don't need this loan, I don't want to carry the debt, you can send that right back to SBA. There are no prepayment penalties. The only charge to you would be the small amount of interest that accrued during those months where you kept it. And for most businesses, that is well worth the price of having that option there should you need it. So I encourage you not to miss out. You can only get one economic injury disaster loan per business, and you can only get one during this disaster. So if you've already received an economic injury disaster loan, you cannot receive another, even though that deadline has been extended. But if you did not take advantage of it, you have essentially till December 31st, 2021 to take advantage. Now, there is a new program called Targeted Idle Advance. No action, no application is required by you to take advantage of this program. This was intended to address businesses who received an idle advance in the past, but did not receive a full amount that they felt that they would be entitled to under the program. So if you either received a partial amount or you applied but were unable to receive an advance because funding had expired during that time, you may be eligible to receive an advance now. An advance would be an amount of up to $10,000 that would be deposited in your account that you do not have to pay back. You do not have to do anything. SBA is reviewing all the applicants in the past who had applied and may have been eligible to receive an economic injury disaster loan advance were it not for funding been exhausted at the time. So again, there's nothing you need to do at the time. SBA will reach out to you with an email if you qualify, with instructions on how to determine your eligibility and the documents that will need to be submitted. If you receive such an email, this is an example of items that would be needed for you to submit to verify your eligibility: your 2019 federal tax return, your EIN, which should be exactly the same as it was in your application, your monthly gross receipts for 19, 20, and 2021 of what is completed so far, confirming information in your original amount, and you have to sign additional forms on there. But again, you will be contacted by SBA. If you're not contacted by SBA, it's not something you would need to worry about. Only one submission can be made for each business. You should carefully review the bank account information in there, ensure everything is 100% correct. So some of you who have applied for economic injury disaster loans in the past and others, if you're denied, sometimes if there's a mistake in the application, you can correct that mistake, and then you have your application reconsidered and go through the process, or maybe have it increased in some way. That is not going to be an option for the targeted economic injury disaster loan advance. If you make a mistake in the application, if you did not supply the correct bank account information or something else, the right EIN or whatever it may be, and your application for the targeted idle advance is denied, then it's denied, and that's it. There is not a reconsideration process. So you want to make sure that if you receive that email from SBA and SBA requests that information, you want to be extra careful and make extra certain that all that information is correct as you provide it, because it will not be, you will not have an opportunity to have that re-reviewed and reconsidered. So I'm going to talk briefly about two other programs before we get to questions. I'm not going to spend as much time on these because they do not impact as many people and businesses here in the Virgin Islands, but they are important opportunities that you should be aware of. If you are a live venue operator or a theater producer or a live performing arts organization or a talent representative, you can also operate museums and other things. You could be eligible for a shuttered venue operators grant. Now that grant is free money. It is not a loan in any way or even a forgivable loan. If you qualify for it, you can apply to SBA. You must have been in operation prior to February 29th, as of February 29th, 2020, and must not have applied for a PPP loan after December 27th, 2020. So if you applied for a PPP loan previously, that's okay, but on this extra round, you cannot also get a grant and another PPP loan. You can only get the grant or a PPP loan. So be aware of that. This is a short kind of spreadsheets there that kind of shows a chart of how the programs impact one another. So if you are not a venue operator or a talent representative or a live performing arts center, you do not have to worry about that middle row from left to right. You would just need to worry about the boxes in the corners. And you should know that you can apply for both loans. You can apply for both a PPP loan and an EIDL loan. You just can't use those funds for the same purposes. And the same business cannot apply or the same business cannot apply for an economic injury disaster loan twice. But you can get both loans. They're just operate a little bit differently. One is through SBA and one is through a lender. But if you are a live venue operator or a theater operator, production or a talent representative, you cannot apply for a PPP loan. You can also apply for an economic injury disaster loan, but not a PPP loan. So another part I want to talk about is loan debt relief, SBA loan debt relief. So if you are a business that has received a SBA backed, what we call 7A or 504 or micro loan, and you would know if you received one of those, SBA will make some of your payments while we're going through the pandemic. Those of you who have those loans already may remember that you had several loans, several payments made on those loans last fall. The new Economic Aid Act extended those debt relief payments. You do not have to do anything. SBA is making a review of all those loans that are eligible with the lenders who are managing those loans, and they are just making those payments directly to those lenders on your behalf. If you'd like, and those lenders should tell you about that so that you don't make those payments accidentally. But if you don't hear anything from your lender, you should continue to make those payments as expected. If you want to get more information on that, you can go to sba.gov, coronavirus relief, debt relief, and you can get a lot more information on how that program is implemented. So the key takeaways in this Economic Aid Act, there were 4 big changes. One was the reauthorization of the PPP program, allowing businesses to get a second draw or a first draw if they never received it. There is extended debt relief for businesses who have a current 7A loan or 504 loan. It also extended the economic injury disaster loan and provided some changes to those who had received an EIDL advance in the past. And then a new grant program was provided called the Shuttered Venues Operators Grant, SVOG, if you fall in one of those eligibility areas. So going forward, you should rely on your local resources for help. Of course, if you're getting a PPP loan, you should contact your bank. But if you need help with the application, or if you just need help with your business in general, many businesses are taking advantage of these programs, but perhaps you just need help reviewing your business plan, helping your business try to pivot to a new model, to try to take advantage of this situation to help grow your business at a time, or change your business model so that you can stay afloat during this time. Well, perhaps you're one of the lucky ones who are able to have a growing business at that time and want to grow and expand and hire new people. Take advantage of your resources available. The 2 SBA resource partners that operate here in the territory are SCORE and the Small Business Development Center. SCORE provides coaches and mentors that are available to you. They are operating virtually right now, but they have a large number of coaches and mentors that can help you out with reviewing your business plan, researching a particular sector. SCORE has a great deal of business mentors with expertise in a wide variety of businesses. Most of the SCORE business mentors are business owners in other areas. So for instance, if you are a restaurant business and you need help and you need coach from other restaurant business owners, you can contact SCORE. They can help you out. All the coaching and mentorship they provide is completely confidential. And they're just a fantastic organization. They offer also a lot of templates on their website to help you kind of look at your business, to financial templates, business plan templates, and so forth. The Small Business Development Center is here and local. That provides one-on-one assistance with business advisors that are here in the Virgin Islands. Most of the SCORE ones are not here in the Virgin Islands, so they do not have as in-depth understanding of the local environment and obstacles that you may face here. But SBDC is, and these are paid business advisors that receive a great deal of training and instruction to offer technical support to you. They operate similar to like a consultant. They neither SCORE nor SBDC business advisors can do the work for you. So if you need to apply for a loan, or you're trying to line up other resources or expand your business or write your business plan, they can help you with that. And they can provide you a lot of consultation and support and advice as you continue on with those programs. And they can connect you with other people who may be able to help, but they will not do the work for you. That is something you should be doing yourself as a business owner. If you'd like to schedule an appointment with an SBDC client or SBDC business advisor, sorry, call one of these numbers. On St. Croix, there's a number there. There's also one on St. Thomas. They're doing a lot of their consulting right now virtually, but they do have local offices on both islands, and it also serves St. John as well. And then finally, for other links and resources outside of those resource partners, you can also get information on SBA programs, get updates from us if you subscribe to our newsletter, sba.gov/updates. And then here in the territory, I am SBA's contact person here in the territory. You can contact me anytime by my email, wayne.huddleston@sba.gov. That is typically the best way to get in touch with me. You can also call my cell phone, 340-473-7945. Not always available to answer when you call, but if you leave a voicemail, I can typically call back within 24 hours, maybe 48 hours. However, again, email is the best way to get in touch with me, especially if you have a more detailed question or I need to forward that to other people. It just makes it a lot easier and efficient if you email me about it. You can also stay up to date on information regarding PPP and everything we do at SBA. We have an sba.gov/coronavirus relief, which we talk about all the economic aid options that are available. And if you want more information on the PPP program or EIDL, you can get information there as well. You can also go to one on the venue grant operators as well. And with that, I will stop talking. It's my part of the presentation. I think we're at almost 10:40 right now, so we have 20 minutes to answer any questions you may have on anything that I've covered during this presentation, or if you also have an additional question about SBA or any of our programs, you can certainly ask that question now. Either type it in the chat or unmute yourself and ask verbally, and be happy to answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Wayne. So anybody that has a question and you would like to ask it on air, please raise your hand. We will recognize you, and then you can unmute your mic, or you can type your question in the chat and I'll read them out. Well, while they're working on their question, Wayne, in reference to the EIDL advance, so if somebody applied for the EIDL loan before December and they did not get an advance, is the SBA contacting them now to offer them an advance? Is that
SBA, yeah, SBA will make that determination. So if you, yeah, they will be targeting all those that are entitled to receive an advance, and SBA will reach out.
okay? So
Yeah,
those are
intended to reach those who applied for an economic injury disaster loan, were approved, but were approved after the funding for the advance ran out.
okay. Great, thank you. And could you explain again the $150,000 PPP for? Is there like a flat forgiveness?
So no, it's just a simplified forgiveness form. It's not an automatic forgiveness. You still must apply, must attest to how those funds were used. You may need to supply some form to your lender, but it is a simplified application form.
Okay, so the level has increased from $50,000 to $150,000.
Correct.
Simplified form.
Correct.
Okay.
That should cover the vast majority, especially here in the Virgin Islands, the vast majority of recipients.
Great. Okay. Don't see any raised hands. Okay. Next question. The deadline date for applying for the PPP is March 31st?
Yes. So they want to make sure you apply before then, but once March 31st passes, then that opportunity is gone.
And historically, the lenders have stopped accepting applications in the territory a few days before that deadline because they have to have the time to process the applications and send them up to SBA to get the approval.
Correct. Yep. So as long as the application is in by March 31st, they're okay, even if it takes it a few days to get that approval. But again, certainly don't want to wait till that last day.
Okay, wonderful. Well, this is some pretty good information. While we're waiting for another question, what's going to be the topic for next week's webinar Wednesday?
I don't recall. Is it? I don't have the calendar in front of me. I've got a lot of presentations, so I don't want to say the wrong thing, but it might be. Is it for government contracting, possibly?
I'm pulling it up now.
Okay.
But we're going to do at least a couple more of these webinar Tuesdays at 10 o'clock on Tuesdays with SBA, so that you can bring people up to speed with what's happening with SBA and inform them about some upcoming programs. All right, logging into that program now.
And I don't know if I'm still sharing my screen. I can bring it back up if needed. I'll hit some keys here.
So now, Wayne, you mentioned the lender match program.
Yes, so Lender Match is the program that allows people to search for a lender on our site. That's on our website. It has the local lenders in there as well, but also many lenders from around the country. I encourage people, if you have a relationship, just already work with the local lenders. That Lender Match program is really intended for people who are applying for a 7A loan. And you can put in your information. You basically put in some basic information about your business, hit apply, and then immediately gets sent to lenders who have expressed an interest in looking at deals within the Virgin Islands. However, it's easier to work with local lenders. I suggest using that only if you're having trouble finding a local lender to work with you.
Great. And I thought we had a local lender on the line a minute ago. And if that lender would like to say something, feel free. But I'm not going to call them out. Now, for those of you that are not familiar with our location in St. Croix, it's again at 6300 Estate Peters Rest, next to what was the Sprint office. And now I guess it's the T-Mobile office. And for those of you that are on St. Thomas, we are no longer located at Niski Center. We are in the UVI Center, which is the old West Bay Merchants Market building. Again, we're not seeing people in person at this time, but that's where we will be located once we reopen in St. Thomas. Okay. It looks like nobody's going to take you up on your questions.
Okay.
So you get an early lunch break.
All right. Well, thank you for hosting us again this time, and look forward to next time. And again, if people come with questions afterwards, they don't have to wait for a presentation. They can just give me a call or email, or give SBDC a call or email.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much. And on behalf of our state director, Mr. Ted Gutierrez, I want to thank all of you for joining us this morning. And we look forward to seeing you tomorrow in our disaster preparedness webinar series with Mark Wilson from the Wilson Group. He's giving some information on preparing for the disaster during COVID-19. And that's at 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. So register on our Facebook page or on our webpage. And with that, we want to thank you all for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you tomorrow and next week, Tuesday at 10 a.m. Have a good day.
Thank you.